another episode of A Tuesday Jew. This is a special Erev Shabbos episode, and we are standing in Elul. You can feel Elul in the air. The shofar is sounding. People are trying to make a cheshbon hanefesh. The year is beginning to close, and every yid, whether he says it out loud or not, feels that little voice inside of him asking, where am I holding? What am I doing with my life? What does the Eibishter want from me now? And then comes this Shabbos. Parshas Ki Tavo. The Baal Korah stands up, and there's a different kind of quiet in shul. You know the quiet I mean, the quiet when we come to the Tochacha. These are the not light pesukim, not at all. Nobody hears them casually. We lower the voice. We want to get through them. We want to keep moving. But maybe we should stop a minute and ask, why did Moshe Rabbeinu give Klal Yisrael these words? Was it only to frighten us? Chas v'shalom. The Tochacha is not a horror movie. It is not a list of ancient threats that has nothing to do with us. It is a warning system. It is a spiritual x-ray. It shows what can happen to a person, a family, a community, even an entire society when we slowly lose our inner compass. Not in one day, not because someone wakes up and says, today I am going to destroy everything. It happens little by little. A person stops being grateful. A person stops caring about another person. A culture begins rewarding greed, noise, image, and power. Truth becomes negotiable. The poor become invisible. The family becomes an inconvenience. Debt becomes normal. Distraction becomes a way of life. And eventually people cannot even see straight anymore. That is one of the frightening ideas in the Tochacha. Confusion of the mind, blindness, astonishment of heart. Not only physical suffering. A person can be surrounded by information and still be confused. A society can have more technology than any generation in history and still have no idea what is true, what is good, what is worth protecting, or what kind of future is building for our children. Does that sound familiar? We are living in a time when people have 1,000 opinions before breakfast. The phone tells them what to be angry about. The news tells them who to hate. The algorithm tells them what to fear. Everybody is screaming and nobody is listening. And people call it being informed. But are we informed? Or are we distracted? Are we free? Or are we being managed by a machine that knows exactly how to keep us anxious, divided, addicted, and too busy to ask the most basic question? What does the Eibishter want from me? That is where I want to go tonight. Not into politics for the sake of politics, and not into fear for the sake of fear, but into the message of Ki Tavo. When a society loses truth, responsibility, gratitude, and compassion, the collapse starts from the inside. And if it can happen to a society, it can happen to a home. And if it can happen to a home, it can happen inside of one person's heart. Let us talk about the Tochacha in an honest way. When the Torah speaks about suffering, confusion, fear, economic pressure, and people losing their footing, we should be careful. We do not sit around pretending that we know why an individual suffers. Only the Eibishter knows the full cheshbon. But the Torah does give us a mirror. It asks a question to the people. What happens when you forget where your bracha comes from? What happens when you begin to think that your strength, your money, your success, and your comfort are all your own achievement? What happens when gratitude dries up? What happens when you have plenty, but you no longer serve Hashem with simcha and a good heart? This is not just a question for governments. This is a question for every one of us. A person can have a home and forget to make it a home. A person can have food and forget to make a bracha with gratitude. A person can have children and become so stressed about what they will become that they forget to enjoy who they are. A person can have a marriage and begin so busy managing life that they forget to speak gently to the person sitting across from them. A person can have a job and forget that parnasa comes from the Eibishter. And when we forget that, something gets cold. We start measuring everything. How much do I have? How much does he have? How much are they making? What school are their children in? What neighborhood did they move to? What kind of simcha did they make? What kind of car are they driving? And then before we know it, we are not living in our own lives anymore. We are living in an endless comparison contest. That's not a bracha. That is a curse of the mind, because a person can have more than their grandparents ever imagined and still feel poor, anxious, embarrassed, and behind. Why, you ask? Because when the heart is no longer attached to Hashem, there is never enough. The Tochacha is telling us, do not want for the outside world to collapse before you notice that something inside needs repair. There is a passage in Ki Tavo that should make every serious person stop. The Torah speaks that about a time when the person should be standing upright, become independent, becomes dependent, when the one who should be lending becomes the one who is borrowing. When a person loses confidence, stability, and sovereignty, when should not twist every pasuk into a newspaper headline, but we can absolutely learn the principle. That changes a person. That changes a family. That changes a country. When you owe too much, you stop making free decisions. You become afraid of the phone call. You become afraid of the bill. You become afraid of the next month. And sometimes you take on more debt just to avoid admitting the first debt was too much. That is how individuals get trapped. That's how families get trapped. And that is how countries get trapped. America has been living for decades on a credit card mentality. Spend now, make promises now, worry later. Both political parties have played that game. Both sides promise things they do not fulfill and they do not fully pay for. Both sides kick the bill down the road. And who gets the bill in the end? The ordinary person, the working family, the person buying groceries, the person trying to pay rent, the person trying to raise children while every month feels more and more expensive than the one before. I'm not here to give a Treasury Department speech. I am saying something simpler. When a society loses fiscal discipline, somebody pays. And it's almost never the person or the people at the top. It is the working person who pays more at the supermarket. It is the older person watching his savings lose value. It is the young couple trying to start a life. It is the poor family that has no cushion when the price of food, rent, medicine, and transportation goes up. And we know this in our own communities too. A young couple can start life under such crushing pressure to make certain kind of wedding, live in a certain kind of place, buy certain things, and look at a certain way, that they begin their marriage already exhausted. They are not building a bias, they are servicing an image. And you cannot build shalom bias on an image. You cannot build Bitachon on an image. You cannot build a child's security on an image. The pasuk is not only about money, it's about what happens when we surrender our inner freedom, the demands of other people's expectations. Let me take you back to Rome for a minute. Rome did not wake up one morning and disappear. No civilization does. It had strength, it had roads, it had an army, it had wealth, it had laws, it had engineers, and it had a powerful identity. But over time, something began to rot. The culture became more obsessed with luxury, spectacle, power, and distraction. The people at the top became further away from the people carrying the weight. The public was given entertainment, outrage, and spectacles, while the deeper problem kept growing. They called it panem et circenses, bread and circuses. Give the people food, give them games, give them something dramatic to watch. Keep them busy, keep them emotional, keep them entertained. And do not let them sit quietly, chas v'shalom, long enough to ask what is happening to their society. Does that sound ancient? Or does that sound like the phone in your pocket? Today's Colosseum is not only a building, it is the screen. The screen gives us outrage. The screen gives us politics as entertainment. The screen gives us endless arguments. The screen gives your crisis after crisis after crisis. And after all that noise, what has it done to our ability to sit with our own thoughts? What has it done to our children, to our Shabbos table? What has it done to a husband and a wife trying to talk without looking down every few minutes? What has it done to our ability to daven slowly, learn deeply, walk outside, look at the sky, and feel that Hashem is running the world? The modern bread and circuses are not only on our television, they are in the constant war of our attention. When attention is stolen, a person loses something precious. They lose the ability to hear their own neshama. That is why a person can have 1,000 pieces of content and still feel empty. Content is not meaning. Noise is not life. Being constantly updated is not the same thing as being awake. Now, I want to talk about the young people being shaped by the culture around us. We do not have to agree with every student, every professor, every politician, or every movement to recognize a real danger. When education becomes ideology, students stop learning how to think. They learn what to repeat. When a classroom rewards slogans instead of honest questions, it does not create wisdom. It creates conformity. And when Jewish students are threatened, isolated, or treated as though their identity is something shameful, that is not education. It is moral failure. The rise of anti-Semitism on campuses should concern every decent person. But it should also make us ask, what kind of moral education are we giving our own children? Do we teach them to think? Do we teach them to ask questions respectfully? Do we teach them that another human being is not a prop for an ideology? Do we teach them to recognize propaganda, outrage, manipulation, and the pressure to join a mob? Or do we only teach them how to repeat our own slogans? Because a child who is never allowed to ask an honest question will not become strong. They will become vulnerable. They will either become afraid of ideas, or they will eventually get swept away by the first person who offers them a louder story. Torah does not fear questions. Torah gives us Gemara full of questions. Torah gives us Avraham Avinu asking. Torah gives us Moshe Rabbeinu asking. Torah gives us people that wrestle with Hashem and still remain connected. That is not rebellion. That is a living relationship. The danger is not a child who asks. The danger is a culture that teaches a child to stop thinking and asking. Let me be very clear. This is not a Republican speech. It is not a Democratic speech. It is not a left-wing speech. And it is not a right-wing speech. It is a Torah speech. And Torah does not belong to a political party. There are people on the left who speak about compassion but support systems and ideas that weaken families, confuse children, excuse anti-Semitism, and make truth negotiable. And there are people on the right who speak about faith, family, work, and the forgotten working person, but then support economic approaches that can leave poor families sick, people with disabilities, and older people without the help they need. We have to be able to say both. If you can see only one side's sin, you are not seeing clearly. If you excuse cruelty because your side is doing it, you are not serving Torah. You are serving a team. The Torah does not ask us to worship the state, but it does command us to care about the vulnerable. The Torah does not teach that government solves every human problem, but it also does not teach that people who are poor, sick, hungry, disabled, or overwhelmed should be thrown away in the name of efficiency. I have worked with people who needed services. I have seen families that were one mischecked, one illness, one rent increase, or one bureaucratic decision away from disaster. So when people talk about cutting services in a cold, abstract way, I do not hear only numbers. I see faces. I see a mother trying to hold a family together. I see somebody with a disability trying to survive with dignity. I see an older person terrified that the help they depend on will disappear. A society has every right to ask whether programs are working. It should fight waste. It should fight corruption. It should fight demand responsibility. But when efficiency becomes a code word for abandoning the weak, it has lost its soul. Ayn Rand, a writer, made selfishness sound like a virtue. Torah says something else. Torah says, do not stand idly by your fellow's blood. Torah says, open your hand. Torah says, care for the widow, the orphan, the stranger, the poor person, the person who has no one else. That is not weakness. That is a society with a heart. There is no political exit from spiritual dead end. You can change the people in office, you can change the slogans, you can change the party in power, but if a culture worships image, greed, rage, and self-interest, it will keep producing coldness no matter who wins the election. So what do we do with all this as we enter Parshas Ki Tavo? Do we panic? No. Do we become depressed? No. Do we sit around talking about how terrible everybody else is? Absolutely not. Elul is not the month for pointing outward first. Elul is the month for looking inward. The king is in the field. Ani l'daidi v'daidi li. The Eibishter is close, and he is asking every one of us, what kind of world are we building in our four amos? Are you building a home of pressure or a home of peace? Are you raising kinder who know how to perform, or kinder who know how to tell the truth? Are you using your money to show off or to bring a bracha? Are you letting the screen run your mind, or are you making time to listen to your neshama? Are you speaking to your spouse with patience? Are you calling the person who feels forgotten? Are you teaching your children that their worth comes from the Eibishter or from what other people think? Are you learning Torah in a way that makes you softer, more honest, more humble, and more responsible? Or are you using Torah as another way to feel above somebody else? These are hard questions, but they are questions that matter. We cannot repair the whole country by ourselves. We cannot repair the universities by ourselves. We cannot repair Washington by ourselves. We cannot repair the way we speak at home tonight. We can repair the way we speak at home tonight. We can repair the way we treat a struggling person this week. We can repair the way we use our money. We can repair the way we use our phones. We can repair the way we stand before the Eibishter. And when enough people do that, a community begins to breathe again. Pure Yidden, Parshas Ki Tavo is not coming to crush us. It is coming to wake us up. The Tochacha is not telling us that we are doomed. It is telling us that our choices matter. A society can lose itself through greed, debt, distraction, and cruelty. A person can lose themselves the same way. But a person can also return. A family can return. A community can return. And Elul is the season of return. Not fake return, not new image, not a performance, a real return, a return to gratitude, a return to emes, a return to tzedakah, a return to chesed, a return to caring about the person who has less power than you, a return to Torah that makes the heart alive. Let the world have its noise. Let the algorithms fight for attention. Let the politicians make promises. Let the culture scream. We have something older, something deeper. We have the voice of Moshe Rabbeinu. We have the call of the shofar. We have the quiet Yid speaking honestly to Hashem. This Shabbos, take a few minutes. Turn off the noise. Look at your family. Look at your own heart and say, Rabbeinu Shalom, bring me back to what is real. Bring me back to what is true. Bring me back to you. Good Shabbos. Have a good Shabbos, my fellow Yidden. Remember to keep davening. Keep connecting to the Eibishter. Have a beautiful Shabbos Ki Tavo. Let's all remember that we are getting closer to the month of Tishrei. We are also coming closer to the Gvesa de Mashiach, and let us all come together as one nation. Good Shabbos.